everybody. Welcome to the August 27, 2019 Board of Commissioners meeting. And we're really blessed to have Reverend Brian Smith from the First United Methodist Church of Marietta to lead us in invocation. And then the Boy Scouts from Troop 795 will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So those who are willing and able, please stand.
I invite you to join with me in a word or a spirit of prayer, and our prayer this evening is an adapted version of a prayer from a Franciscan monk. Let us pray. O Lord, it is with grateful hearts that we gather together this evening, and together we pray. We pray that you might bless us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we might live deep within ourselves. We pray that you might bless us with anger at injustice, exploitation of people, so that we might work for justice, freedom, and peace. We pray that you would grant us with tears to shed for those who are hungry, without a place to lay their heads, or suffering or in pain, so that we might reach out our hands and turn their pain into joy. And we pray that you, O Lord, might bless us with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in this world, even when others say that it cannot be done. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Scouts. Thanks for coming tonight and starting out this meeting on the right foot. All right, we have a number of presentations tonight. And we're going to start with Commissioner Burrow has the first one.
52 is mine. Oh. Who's after me?
We've had our first change of the evening. I'm giving the first presentation.
I'm sorry.
And do not get worried, I'm just taking off my jacket. Very slowly. I'd like to have Commissioner Ott join us down front. We'll do a presentation for
Loretta.
we're going to have Horse or Post 29 up here. We have a proclamation for them. Chairman. Commissioner Ott and I are members of this post, so that's why we're down here together. So we have a proclamation. Whereas the American Legion is the nation's largest wartime veterans service organization, chartered by Congress in 1919 as a patriotic organization devoted to mutual helpfulness. Members are committed to mentoring youth and sponsoring wholesome programs in our communities. They also advocate patriotism and promote strong national security. And whereas the Horse or Post 29 American Legion was founded in Cobb County on September 29th, 1919. Since its founding a century ago, this post has served as the home of the American Legion in Cobb. And whereas Horse or Post 29 is the largest American Legion post in the state of Georgia and one of the largest in the nation. Members of the post serve Cobb County residents via the 4 pillars of service: Veterans Affairs, National Security, Americanism, and Children and Youth. And whereas activities and events of Horse or Post 29 have raised more than $400,000 for veterans charities and $200,000 for the first responder charities in Cobb County. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 29th, 2019 as Horse or Post 29 Centennial Day. We encourage all residents to honor the important role this American Legion Post has played in the history of our county and the services it provides to our nation's veterans, given on this 27th day of August, 2019. Congratulations, gents. Now, who wants to give some brief remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am the Junior Vice Commander at Post 29. My name is Russ Wood. We have representation of our Centennial Board of Directors here tonight. It's a privilege and an honor for us to be one of the largest, oldest nonprofits serving veterans in the country, and especially here in Cobb. It is our mission to go through the programs that the chairman mentioned, spanning everything from our oldest members all the way down to the youth of our community. Our Commander, Walt Cusick, couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to express his gratitude to the entire board for recognizing our centennial. And we are going to have a 3-day birthday the weekend of September 27th to 29th. Parts of it will be open to the public. We're just off behind the Center for Family Resources near the Big Chicken, and we'd love to have people come out, learn more about the American Legion, and see if they can fit in and help us serve not only the veterans, but all of Cobb County. Thank you.
We know. Now we have Commissioner Burrow.
Sorry about that. If I could have Jay Cunningham with Superior Plumbing come up, and Mr. David Birkenbein and his dog Loretta. About 2.5 years ago, I started a program pairing Cobb County Animal Shelter dogs and cats with veterans. And through the generosity of Superior Plumbing, who gave us the donations for first 50 adoptions, and when I got up to number 48, I called Jay, and he kicked in more money for up to 100. Well, we're now at 111. And
I'll give her a
yay!
hand. Yep.
So, you want to bring the check up? And so now Jay is giving us another $5,000 for 100 more. So our first adoption was April of 2017. So we've grown quite a bit since then. And yesterday we had 2 adoptions. Also, Cobb County Animal Services staff, director and staff are here. I'm sorry, Shanna, get up here. They take care of all the dogs and cats before they get adopted. So if you're not a veteran and you want a great dog or cat, you can go to the Cobb County Animal Shelter. For $115, they're fully vetted. They have all their shots, they're spayed or neutered, and they're microchipped. You can't get that anywhere from a veterinarian. So Shanna Luke, Shannon Abbott, and Jacob Arnold are Cobb County Animal Services. And Loretta here was adopted 2 weeks ago. So we wanted to kind of showcase one of our veterans, 8 years in the Army, active duty, and how many? 5 National Guard, David Birkenbein. And most of y'all know him from public comment. She's shy. She's backing up under your leg. Hank. Oh, you're so sweet.
You want to get a picture of
Sure.
Come on. Don't you get in the middle.
I'll hold the check. The real check's already been deposited.
You can't.
Is she all right?
No, the dog.
So thank you, Superior Plumbing and Cobb County Animal Services. And a big thank you to all of our veterans who, this is really a win-win program. It helps the shelter with getting their animals adopted and cutting down on our capacity there. It helps our veterans because dogs and cats are really good therapy, especially if you have PTSD and issues that veterans sometimes have. And it's great advertisement for Superior Plumbing, too. Jay's a very generous soul, so we appreciate it, Jay. Okay, we're good. She is wild.
Thank you, Jay, very much.
Oh, and Jay has also brought us a cake to celebrate our 100th adoption. So if you want to go into the Learning Center, right across the hall, there's cake for you too. Thank you, Jay. Good to see you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrow, and also thank you to Jay Cunningham for generosity, and also to the Animal Services and all the vets. All right, third proclamation is being done by Commissioner Gambrill for the Senior Olympics. Yeah.
And I'd like to invite our athletes up along with our senior services staff. It is amazing. For those of you that had the opportunity to attend the reception that we had earlier, it was amazing listening to some of these stories.
Swimmers together.
You gonna stand next to?
Yes, I'm gonna stay close to
Okay.
him so I can buzz it.
And it is with great honor for me to offer this proclamation from the Board of Commissioners. Whereas older Americans are among our greatest treasures, providing invaluable links to the past and wise counsel for the future, and making significant contributions to our community. And whereas it is important to acknowledge the contributions older individuals have made in our communities and in the workplace through civic leadership and mentoring, and to encourage healthy and active aging for seniors in Cobb County. Whereas since 1987, the National Senior Games have been held for athletes 50 and over to compete against one another in a variety of events, including swimming, pickleball, triathlons, table tennis, and golf. Participants qualify at state or local events across the country, then compete against others of their age group in the National Games. Over 30 Cobb residents qualified and attended the National Senior Games in 2019 in a variety of events. Whereas it is the mission of Cobb Senior Services to improve the quality of life for the county's senior citizens through innovative programs offered at our 10 state-of-the-art senior centers throughout the county, with the prime focus being health and wellness programming, in addition to offering free exercise facilities to seniors 55 and over. Whereas Cobb Senior Services has provided for the needs of our senior population for more than 35 years, serving over 20,000 seniors a month, and pledges to continue this commitment through classes and services focused on all aspects of wellness. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do urge all residents to honor older adults in their athletic accomplishments and encourage physical excellence in all ages. We encourage all older adults to promote and participate in activities that contribute to the health and physical wellness of our older citizens. This is the 27th day of August, 2019. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes.
I just want to say very quickly, and I know you got a lot of things on the schedule tonight. These athletes, these are just a few of the Cobb County athletes that competed at the Georgia Senior Games and then went on to the national competition in Albuquerque, New Mexico this past June. 2020 will be our qualifying year for the next national, which will be in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in 2021. But in September, we have the senior games in Warner Robins, the center of the state. All of these athletes competed, almost all of these athletes competed there before they went to Albuquerque. We need you to compete. We need you to stay active. We need you to stay healthy. We would like for you to be involved, if not at a participant level, then at a volunteer level. But most importantly, we want to congratulate all of these people. And if you could see them in action, you just can't imagine. You need to see them in action. These people do the long jump, the triple jump, the swimming, the 100-meter, the 200-meter. We have 20 sports, 60 events, and we've got competitors right here in almost all of those. I'll have to pick out the guy on the end there. For 8 years, their basketball team have gone to the national competition, and they have won the national championship for the last 4 national games. The Georgia Boys, they're called. It's not Cobb County, it's Georgia Boys, so they're spread out all over. But thank you to Cobb County for recognizing the efforts and the enthusiasm and the work that these people put into staying active, staying healthy, and being involved in their community, in their everyday life, in our life. Thank God for all of you. I appreciate you very, very much, and thank y'all so much for doing this.
We want you, Bob.
Should, not that I'm that old. Thank you, Commissioner Gambrell. Now we have Commissioner Cupid with a proclamation.
Good evening. Will those here on behalf of Sting Inc. please join me up front? This evening, I have the honor to recognize an organization that has been doing a lot of great work in our community. And I've seen them operate from its very beginning, and it's amazing to see how many young people have gone through this program. So this evening, with our proclamation, it states, whereas Sting Incorporated has a 501c3 youth organization founded in South Cobb in 2009. The organization celebrated its 10th year anniversary this August 3rd, 2019, at the Cobb County Civic Center. Sting helps youth envision future possibilities, increase academic performance, and empower themselves for success. Since its inception, the organization has served more than 200 students. And whereas through mentoring and enrichment programs, Sting has a stellar record of helping local middle and high school students go to college, technical school, or serve in the military. To date, Sting has 7 college graduates from the University of West Georgia, Bethune-Cookman College, Georgia Southern University, Kennesaw State University, the Medical College of Georgia, Albany State University, and Grenoble School of Management in France. And whereas 25 students are currently attending college and 1 is in graduate school in Italy, Sting alumni are representing at Hampton University, College of Worcester, Ohio, Middle Tennessee State University, Georgia Southwestern University, Oglethorpe University, the University of West Georgia, Columbus State University, College of Coastal Georgia, Valdosta State University, Bennett College, Kennesaw State University, Georgia State University, University of Alabama, Maryville College, and the Aviation Institute of Maintenance. That's wonderful. And whereas Sting is fulfilling its vision of providing educational and socialization programs to enhance teens' abilities to live productive and balanced lives, graduates are gainfully employed at Emory University Hospital, Federal Express Administrative Offices, the Atlanta Police Department, and American Airlines. Alumni have also served or are currently serving in the U.S. military. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby congratulate Sting Incorporated for a decade of advancing the intellectual and social conditions of our youth through quality programs. We thank you for your tireless efforts to ensure our young people have very bright futures. This, the 27th day of August 2019. Congratulations, Sting.
We want to thank Commissioner Cupid and the Cobb County Commission and the Cobb County community for this recognition for 10 years. We're a small nonprofit, but we're making a huge impact in this county. We have one of our students that will say a few words. I don't want to say a whole lot, but I just want to thank you guys for honoring us and recognizing that we are busy making an impact with the next generation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is London Barnes. I'm 16, and I've just became a junior in high school, and I've been with Sting since I was in 6th grade, which is going on 5 years ago now. And I would just like to say, Sting has helped me be a better female overall, be a better studious person, and I have a more clearer understanding of my future and future occupations.
Thank you. And would you guys like to introduce yourself? You can just let us know who you are.
My name is Elitria Barnes. I'm a parent volunteer, and my daughter is London Barnes.
My name is Geneva Vanderhorst, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of Sting, Inc.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Fuller, and I am a parent and board member of Sting, and I'm delighted to be here to represent the group.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Houston. I'm one of the chaperones that goes on the college tours and support the Sting.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. We'll line up for a picture.
All right, here we go.
All right. Thank you again. Congratulations, Geneva.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cupid, and to the members of Sting. We have a couple public hearings tonight. So the first one, I believe Ms. Gallagher will lead us through the discussion on this first public hearing about a revision to the Cobb County ordinance.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Nancy Gallagher. I'm with the County Attorney's Office, and I'm here to present a proposed amendment to the Cobb County Code to the Section 106, which is the Street Light, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places Code section. The proposed ordinance would add a whole new article for the small wireless facilities enactment. During the 2019 legislative session, the state of Georgia enacted Senate Bill 66. It's also known as the Small Cell Bill. Its official name is the Streamlining Wireless Facilities and Antennas Act. It becomes effective October 1st of this year. The act allows wireless service providers to install small cell facilities, and I'll explain a little bit about what those are in a minute. On public right-of-ways, on poles, certain other structures, existing poles, new poles, and replacement poles. The new law only applies to public right-of-way in the cities and counties. It does not apply to private property. So any attempt at installation of a small cell on private property would still have to go through the zoning procedures. This picture is an attempt to show how the small cells interact with the cell towers. Small cells will not replace cell towers. You still need the tower, and the small cells are pinging off of those towers, and the small cells are to provide enhanced capacity in denser areas. So you'll find these mostly in the more urban counties and cities. They don't have as long a range as the cell towers, so they need to be put relatively close together. That's why in this picture you see one on every street corner. I don't know the exact range, but they do have to be closer together because they're not for distance, therefore enhanced capacity to handle the services required in the area. These next pictures show some actual installations in the city of Atlanta, I believe. The small cell consists of an antenna, which is on the top of a pole or structure. It's on street lights here. It can be on a traffic signal pole as well, or it can be on a standalone pole. On the right side, you can see the equipment box on the side of the pole. Sometimes the equipment boxes or all the equipment attached to the small cell can be within the pole base itself, but these show some examples of what they would look like. And that one on the right is right by the Capitol. The act is very detailed. It was developed over several years, a lot of back and forth between the industry and the local governments. So I can't list all the details here, but this slide shows some of the more key components of the bill. As I said earlier, it does apply to all the public rights-of-way of the cities and counties. There are height and size restrictions on the poles, both existing poles. You cannot put an antenna, but only so many feet above existing poles. And there are size restrictions on the equipment. So that box you saw on the side, there are some size restrictions on that as well. There is a review and permitting process that the installers must go through. They can't just put up a pole and install their small cell. They have to go through the local jurisdiction's permitting process. There are provisions for payment of fees to the county, depending on where the pole is located and what type of pole, if it's a new pole or existing pole. It does allow for replacement poles if a pole does not meet the wireless provider's needs and they must have service in that area. They are allowed to offer to replace a pole. The county does have some discretion to determine whether the requirements of the act have been met with the small cell applications and the ability to reject permits in certain circumstances. The wireless providers are also required to meet with county staff at least 30 days ahead of any deployment plans and offer to show us how many small cells they plan to install within the next 24 months and the timing of that deployment. We have had 3 such meetings already. I'm going to skip ahead to the actual a few things about the actual permitting process. Once the permitting process or the application is complete and the county determines that it meets all the requirements, if it does, the county must permit the small cell. There is no discretion left at that point if it meets all the requirements. Both the county and the wireless providers have deadlines they have to meet in order to get the application through and the permit granted. They're called shot clocks. Some people may have heard of those. Once the permit is issued, the wireless providers must complete the construction of the small cell facility that was permitted within 6 months of the time the permit was granted. And this was put in to prevent speculative permitting for providers, racing to one location that's ideal and just getting their permit and sitting on it and not building anything. Each permit will be good for 10 years, and they are renewable. And go back to the previous slide, which brings us to the reason for the proposed ordinance. The state law was enacted, as I mentioned, it's effective October 1. By implementing the proposed ordinance, it would allow the county to bring its current policies on small cells in line with the new law. It would also aid county staff when they're trying to implement the new law because it, like I said, it's very detailed, it's very long. It would help the staff to know what the review process is, what the deadlines are, and what permits must be granted and what they can reject. It would also grant authority to county staff at DOT to make those determinations because with the deadlines that are in place, there is no time for each permit application to go to the board in the normal course of a Board of Commissioners meeting. It would also serve to provide published standards for the small cell facilities that we are permitted to have in our ordinance by the state law. Tonight is the first public hearing, of course. The next one is Tuesday before the Planning Commission at 9 o'clock. And then the final one will be here on September 24th at 2019. At this time, I would ask that the proposed ordinance be open for public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And just to go over the guidelines, every speaker is be authorized 3 minutes. You can have an unlimited number of speakers, and we ask that when you step up here to make your comments, let us know who you are and where you live. So that, I now declare this first public hearing open to solicit comments on the proposed amendments to the 2019 Code Amendments, Official Code of Cobb County, Part 1, Code, Chapter 106, Streets, Sidewalks, Other Public Services, and Small Cell Towers. So with that, would anyone like to comment on this proposed change to the county code? Seeing none, I now declare this first public hearing closed. Thank you. All right, now we're going to have another public hearing. This will be the second public hearing on another proposed change to the county code.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Blair, and I'm here to present the proposed revisions to the sign code. The amendments under consideration today are only for the sign code, which is in Article 6 of Chapter 134. This is actually the third public hearing, second public hearing before this board, but there was a public hearing before the Planning Commission as well. And following this public hearing, the board may vote on whether or not to approve these revisions. To refresh your memory, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case, Reed v. Town of Gilbert, decided in 2015, which dramatically changed how local governments can regulate signs. The Reed case involved a small church that challenged the town's sign code because special event signs necessary to advertise where its services were to be held were treated less favorably than political or ideological signs. The court's decision in that case finds that sign codes with different rules for different categories of signs are content-based and subject to strict scrutiny by the courts. This is a very difficult challenge, a very difficult standard if challenged. You may remember that the county revised some of the sign code after Reed, but it was not enough to eliminate all of the content-based references, and that is why we're looking at these revisions again today. The Reed case does not mean that the sign code cannot, or that signs cannot be regulated by the county. It is still considered a significant governmental interest to protect the property values throughout the jurisdiction and to protect the citizens as they travel through the county. The majority of the changes to the sign code are basically in how the signs are described using non-content identifiers. The administration and enforcement sections remain relatively unchanged. But because substantial changes are being proposed, the code has been restructured to follow the process chronologically and to simplify the code. The county's regulation cannot be based on content. After Reed, only non-content aspects of a sign can be regulated. The list on the left contains descriptions from the existing code, which are no longer acceptable under Reed. The list on the right of this slide shows descriptions that are in the proposed code without reference to content. There are two changes that have been recommended since this was originally presented to you. The first is from the Water Department to call attention to permanent signs within water or utility easements, prohibiting them unless there is a variance or the easement holder has waived a permanent sign in the area. And second is from the Planning Commission to retain the maximum 50% coverage for a window sign. As a result of Reed, a sign code that makes any distinction based on the message of a sign is content-based and subject to strict scrutiny by a court. The changes currently proposed are to eliminate these distinctions from Cobb's current code. I ask that you open a public hearing on the proposed amendments to Article 6 of Chapter 134.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Blair. And again, same guidelines apply. 3 minutes per speaker, unlimited number of speakers, and we ask that you identify yourself and where you live in the county. So with that, I now declare, according to my script, the second public hearing. And Millie's always right. Just want you to know that. The second public hearing before the Board of Commissioners. Will that meet your criteria, Ms. Blair? On comments regarding proposed amendments to the official code of Cobb County Part 1, Chapter 134, zoning Article 6. Would anyone like to make comments about the proposed changes to this code? Seeing none, I now declare this public hearing closed. And with that, are there any comments from the board? Do I make a motion? Okay. Then I move to strike. Well, let me read a preface here. Well, I normally do not propose language for a motion. I've been advised by the county attorney, the county clerk, that specific language is needed in this case because of the Muni Code. Since, if approved, the county is striking an entire section and replacing it. Therefore, the proposed language that I'll be making a motion is, I move to strike and remove the existing Article 6 of Chapter 134, containing sections 134 through 311, and 130 and through, I'm sorry, sections 134-311 through 134-376, and to approve and replace it with revised Article 6 of Chapter 34, containing revised sections 134-311 through 134-376, effective today, August 27, 2019.
Second.
Have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, before we have public comment, I'd like to have Commissioner Ott bring us up to date on the late-breaking development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Early this afternoon, I got a phone call from the governor's office to inform me that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution was going to be releasing an article about a release that occurred at the Sterigenics plant on July 31st. I was a little bit disappointed that the governor's office and myself were finding out that way, since I had just met with Sterigenics earlier in the day. The release was less than 10 pounds, which is why it was not reported. But the governor just to kind of make sure that we all understand exactly how this is going on over there, sent a hazard response team to find out exactly how Sterigenics determines when a release is less than 10 pounds. They are actually over there right now investigating with Sterigenics. What I did get out of the meeting this afternoon with Sterigenics was a commitment that moving forward, they will provide on a monthly basis to the Air Quality Oversight Committee, which Mayor Bacon formed, myself, Commissioner Cupin, and the county manager are members of. They will provide on a monthly basis everything that happens in the plant that is not reportable, so anything less than 10 pounds. So that moving forward, government officials will now be able to track what's going on in the plant.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to bring that up today in case we have some comments tonight from people who want to address the issue regarding the emission of ethylene oxide. So with that, how many speakers do we have tonight, Mr. Rowling?
There are 6 that are signed up, sir.
Okay. So we can let the Boy Scouts go first. So.
All right, guys, remember I told you each have to have a question. It's part of their merit badge requirements. So who's going first? Don't make me call you up here. So you have to address your question to the chairman, and then he'll...
Then I'll pass it to Commissioner Ott to answer.
Remember I told you that that's what he would do.
How is the new city in East Cobb going?
Oh, with pleasure. I refer that to Commissioner Ott.
All right, so repeat your question again. No, I didn't hear all of it. So there's something about East Cobb. Well, I am not a part of the committee that's doing it. It's actually citizens. I don't know why this is so funny. But there is a committee that is looking at it. They are working on their map. And they had a financial report done. And it's they had a financial committee that looked at it. And I know that they're determining the feasibility.
Thank you, sir.
Nice try over there. Yeah, I know, Joanne Starr.
All right, who's the other young man? Come on up.
All right, who's next?
All right. You got leaders, you got to step forward here, all right? You can't hesitate.
Hello.
Good evening.
So I have a question about, I live on Johnson Ferry Road, and it is extremely difficult to get in and out of the neighborhoods along that road due to the traffic. And we were wondering if there could be anything done about that.
You know, and I can't think of a better person to answer that than Commissioner Ott.
Gee, how did I know? Okay, so what street do you live off of on Johnson Ferry?
Johnson Ferry.
I know, but what's your other street? You know, the one that you go into in your neighborhood?
Jordan Lake Drive.
Okay. Yes.
Really?
What's that? You did? I should let Commissioner Cupid answer it since she used to live there. But basically, what DOT does is the traffic lights on Johnson Ferry Road are coordinated. So if your mom or your dad drives the speed limit, then you're supposed to be able to kind of go down the road. And if you don't, you'll ask them, are you going too fast? But to get out of your neighborhood, the lights are coordinated so that people can get out. And some of the neighborhoods have sensors in the road or up, you see those cameras are up against the lights that sense when the car is there, and then it'll change the signal to let you out.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Great question. Who's next? Come on, gentlemen. All right.
You don't be afraid, he doesn't bite. You can ask him a question.
Hi.
Good evening.
So my question is about the opium epidemic.
Yes.
So, what exactly would Cobb County be doing to prevent it from reaching into our area, even though it's already in northern Atlanta?
You want to guess who's going to
That's
answer
a great
that
question, and you know, I can't think of a more qualified person to answer that question than Commissioner Ott.
And they're not just throwing this, I'm actually dealing with the opioid crisis. One of the things the county's done is we've created a drug trailer to train your parents what to look for, to see if, that their children are abusing drugs. We've also, the county has entered into a lawsuit with a whole lot of other counties and cities against the drug manufacturers to try to get it stopped.
All right.
And the county this year, in its budget, authorized another $250,000 for public health to help them with their efforts to combat the opioid crisis here in the county. So, thank you very much. Great question.
Nope, two more.
Two more.
No.
Hi, my name is Bengal. What are the benefits of the SunTrust Park to the community?
You want to guess where it's coming? I'll just tell you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
SunTrust Park is in District 2 that I represent, and the benefits to the community is that we had not had a new office building over there in 20 years. We've now had 5. It has improved the area. There's a lot more restaurants over there. Matter of fact, later tonight and some of the next meetings, we're going to talk about additional hotels over there. So it's brought a lot of activity and kind of made it into a destination.
And tell me you're a Braves fan.
Ooh.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, and then Commissioner Burrow wants to add to that comment. No, you.
The investment in the Braves from taxpayers is from county property tax. The school tax, which is 2/3 of your parents' property tax bill, the school tax, there's no investment from the schools in the Braves Stadium and the Battery, but the schools are getting a huge benefit from the property tax revenue and also the SPLOST sales tax revenue.
Right, true. Okay, sir, great question. Thank you.
Last one. Right, one more. Uh-oh, he's got notes.
He's got pictures.
So my question to you guys is, how does the new East Cobb City benefit the public?
Well, I think it's early to tell. I'll give the commissioner a break here. You know, there's still a committee looking at all the pros and cons of that, and I think it's best to wait till we have a report from that committee that's looking at that, and then at that time we'll be able to have a more informed conversation. Okay? So I ask your patience, but I expect something later in the fall. We'll be able to answer your question in more detail. So come on back and ask us, and I'll be sure to defer that question to Commissioner Ott.
And I want everybody in the audience to know that that's how you do the questions during public comment.
Okay, now the other 6.
Thanks, guys.
Great job.
Mr. Birkenbein?
Yeah, she should. She's not going very far. This is really no fair, David. This is really no fair bringing a dog for sympathy. All right.
Hey,
You're bringing
I was
out all
forced.
you're
I was
bringing out all
forced
the
to.
arrows now out of your quiver.
When a commissioner tells me to do something, I got to do it, right? So, what can you do? And to answer him, when are we going to, Commissioner Chairman, David Birkenbein, Mapleton, when are we going to work on the outdoor burning law?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Any questions, answers? Same thing. I mean, we're just going on, and hopefully, Mr. Chairman, you got my letters, and Commissioner Cupid, you got my letters, my opinions, the way I see. Intimidation's a funny thing, but I'm not intimidated, so it doesn't matter. But I had to let it be known. When we go through this, article is intended to promote and safeguard public health. We have clean water. We worry about garbage. We worry about tall grass. We worry about parked cars. We enforce everything but this right here. And I want to make a statement on the medical burn ban. When they get a medical burn ban, the fire marshal has the people write down that's getting the medical burn ban on people that are burning around them so they can send out letters. I believe it's either 9 or 10 that they'll send out. So it's not like it's not known when the people get a medical burn ban that it's going to have one in the neighborhood. And that's 10 people around them. And yet the people around them can still burn with the smoke. 54-113, which if you violate it, you can be penalized just like 54-114. I was looking back on some of the other, there's a definition of clean wood right there, as long as it ain't painted, you know, treated lumber, anything like that. But logs, you know, as long as it's dried and clean of salt and all that, so as to produce a large amount of smoke when burning, it's still gonna smoke. And what does outdoor burning mean? It tells us right there, kindling, maintaining fire that doesn't, product that come up, combustion emitted directly into the air. And once it gets into the air, it floats out. It gets on the ground. It doesn't dissipate like it would up a chimney. That's why you have stuff in a chimney. That's why you have chimney fire, because all the creosote, because all the stuff that collects up in there. But we just, exceptions to outdoor burning restrictions. Then the prohibitions. They promote, like I said last time, they promote health, they promote clean air, they promote everything that you'd want. Burning not allowed on windy days. Well, wait till October 1st. Even when you go around driving through the neighborhood, you're gonna see the smoke, and it's gonna be thick, especially in Mapleton. And this one right here gets me. The fire chief shall be authorized to ban outdoor burning in a limited geographical area. And that was supposedly my problem when they said ban. Ban means ban. Well, what does ban mean? Ban means ban. What does prohibition mean? Prohibition means you can't do it. So how many more words do we have to throw in there? In a geographical area with receipt of medical documentation from a resident of medical condition adversely affected by smoke. I mean, and then they're gonna ask for the addresses around you that burn so they can send them a letter, so they can tell them that there's gonna be a medical burn ban. I mean, we just go willy-nilly. We just do whatever we want. Here's all my dates. I got 225 minutes I spoke so far. 3 hours, 3.75 hours. But we live in an age of narratives where propagandized storylines, which I'll call war stories, you know war stories, how they embellish over time. Well, this is how this embellished, all the thousands of people that come up here when this medical burn ban was in. I call it the war stories, not tactics, not facts or laws matter. Laws matter, but we just seem like it doesn't. And we just roll on, we roll on. And I'm tired of delicate balance and everything else. When are we gonna deal with it, Mr. Chairman? I'm ready, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birkenbein.
Tullen Avard.
Okay. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Boyce and BOC. My name is Tulin Avard, and I'm here with the Bells Ferry Civic Association and Chastain Lakes HOA. I'm here to speak about an agenda item pertaining to purpose-built student housing, and I have two other colleagues who are here with me to speak about it as well. As we all know, the county placed a moratorium on PBSH zoning requests nearly 2 years ago in order to conduct its own investigation and to work on incorporating a new set of code amendments to an existing section of the Cobb County Code of Ordinances. The county established a stakeholders committee comprised of local civic and HOA associations, and we were one of them, KSU staff, the town center CID, administrators from the city of Kennesaw, and various police entities. The county listened to the concerns of their panel and modified the draft stipulations to incorporate suggestions of the attendees to come up with the current code amendments that are proposed tonight. Although there are no local PBSH developers in the area. The proposed stipulations have been shared with a prospective developer who is in agreement with them. The majority of these developers are national and therefore understand the zoning process and hire experienced zoning lawyers to represent them. Adding stipulations that state that this PBSH can only be built in a rack, have to be near an arterial or major collector roadway, require a recent traffic count, can only be of a set height, and have a set buffer requirement will benefit the surrounding community. There are several different reasons why PBSHs differ from traditional apartments. It is true that they are not technically student housing, but 95% of the renters are students, and the buildings are usually designed to include lecture halls and computer study rooms. In addition, often a retail component is attached to the building that caters to the students and the general public. And lastly, the layouts are very different from the average apartment. There are 3 types of PBSHs in our area: apartment-style pods, townhouses, and cottages. They're all built with a common living room, but each bedroom has its own bathroom, and most of these units contain 4 to 6 bedrooms. If these pod-style developments fail, it will be more problematic to turn them into other types of housing. We have been informed by the county that the moratorium can no longer be extended, and so it is very important to us to have an enforceable zoning code specifically in place for PBSHs, which will protect our students and preserve our community and quality of life. Therefore, we ask the BOC to please approve the proposed code amendments for purpose-built student housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Diane Shepherd.
Good evening, Chairman Boyce and Commissioners. My name is Diane Shepherd. I'm a board member of the Bells Ferry Civic Association, and I'm also on the team of stakeholders for the purpose-built student housing. We would like to thank Commissioners Ott, Cupid, Gambrill, and Burrell for meeting with us and Pine Tree Civic Association on the subject of purpose-built housing. Each commissioner has different individual viewpoints, and they are all good listeners. We are appreciative of their thoughtful input and insights. I became involved out of concern for the students. Unlike senior citizens, students are not a federal protected class under federal law. As a result, non-students of any age can live off campus in housing that is promoted to students. New students and their parents are generally unaware of the Federal Fair Housing Act and what it means. KSU stakeholders have stated that the #1 question incoming students ask is about personal safety. The new code puts restrictions in place by requiring a crime prevention plan by the developers. The developer will know up front that he must work with the police to develop and maintain this plan. One requirement would be 24-hour, 7-day-a-week on-site management. The added stipulations pertaining to security will greatly help keep our college students safer, many of whom are underage and living away from home for the first time. My second concern is that the police force in the county is already stretched thin. We should do everything we can to lighten their load. Existing PBSHs take up disproportionate amount of police resources. Violent crime in student housing is higher than in the rest of the county. Precinct 1 is currently working on an existing PBSH development to avoid abatement. This is serious. Neither the police nor the property owner wants an official police intervention due to high crime rate. They don't want to be shut down. It wouldn't be good for their image. We strongly recommend that all of these developments, existing and future, increase their security measures since they are not limited to students only, and many of the students are minors. The stakeholders team included several Cobb County police officers as well as City of Kennesaw Police. Commissioners, the police need your help. Approving this new code will help them. The new code helps the police be proactive rather than reactive. Crime prevention is the biggest goal of the PBS code. In today's world, it is becoming increasingly difficult to feel safe. College students are leaving the safety of the nest to venture out on their own. I want new college students to have a positive experience. This summer, my oldest grandson spent a week in a dorm at the University of Georgia in Athens taking a business class. My grandson, who is a high school student, was surprised that the dorm room was so small and that he had to share it with someone else. Off-campus housing is marketed to appeal to students who don't want to share a bedroom or bathroom. There are amenities such as swimming pools and billiards as well, but the downside is not obvious to parents and their students. On campus, dorms are safer and have much more supervision, but there's simply not enough room in existing dorms for those at KSU who require student housing. The State Board of Regents recently turned down a funding request for additional on-campus KSU dorms. So the reality is more off-campus housing is needed. Each purpose-built student housing complex on off-campus houses about 600 students. This year, the freshman class at KSU was 30% higher than last year. So the need is pressing. Unfortunately, KSU has no way to regulate what is built off-campus. KSU police are not involved in the purpose-built student housing either. So the regulation and policing responsibility falls on the county. The county has a responsibility to its citizens to plan ahead for their safety and well-being. One drug dealer down the hall in an off-campus housing is one too many. The biggest drug bust in Cobb County took place in existing off-campus student housing. In another situation in off-campus housing, students posted pictures of blood, where allegedly one drug dealer stabbed another. A disconcerting fact is that a person was killed in purpose-built student housing, in Athens, Georgia in June. The police stakeholders had some great ideas for crime prevention. Please help them follow through with all their ideas. It is not just the safety of the students that is a concern. Every time the police are called, there is risk involved. I ask that you adopt the purpose-built student housing code as a way to help our police and the students.
Thank you, ma'am.
Philip Anzalon.
Third and last. Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. My name is Phil Anzalone. I'm Vice President and a board member in both the Pine Tree Civic Organization and the HOA Weatherburn Woods. This is the area that surrounds the western part of KSU. So tonight I would like to address three aspects of this bill. Okay, the first one is transportation and traffic. Unfortunately, the original campus of KSU is like 70 acres. They basically have created a pedestrian campus, which has basically put the problems of transportation onto the neighborhood. Basically, the main road here is Chastain Road. How this bill affects us is severe. The traffic right now is a major problem. In fact, we've been in front of you before to ask for the closing of Fry Lake Road. Because of the construction and the parking decks that were created, we get about 5,000 to 6,000 cars a day through the neighborhood. These are 20-foot wide roads that are very narrow, very hilly. We have major speeding problems with it. There is really not a good solution. What we tried to do when we created this code amendment, is to give some incentive to developers to go further and create the bus system with KSU. In fact, years ago, we worked with KSU, getting them to use the buses to go to all the individual college campuses and also to the housing that was not theirs. So one of the things that we put in this bill was to basically say, if you build according to this spec, and we will give you a 25% discount on the number of parking spaces. As the code stands now, you need one parking space per resident. So we reduce that by 25%, with the stipulation that they coordinate with KSU for bus transport. We wound up doing that with 22 West because there was like 820 beds there that creates major problems. There is not a really good solution to this. I mean, years ago, when there was Commissioner Helen, we basically created a traffic circle. We have yet to start construction on that traffic circle, which is now scheduled for January of next year. Getting in and out of the subdivision is a major issue. In addition to, we get a lot of speeders. In fact, at every annual meeting that we have in both organizations, the number one issue that the police get is we don't get enough enforcement. We've had major meetings with them. There's not a lot that can be done. The second aspect that I wanted to talk about was students in residential neighborhoods. So this bill does not address that directly, but there's a very strong connection. There is a shortage of housing. Uh, KSU has roughly 32,000 students on the Kennesaw campus. Okay, they have roughly 1,400 beds. Right last week, they still had 1,100 applications, up and above 100% use. So there is a real need. The other thing is that KSU is basically trying to become an international college. Right now, their out-of-state population is only 14%. Besides, as was mentioned, the freshman class is 30% increases. There is a very strong need for student housing. Where it ties into the residential is the fact that when students can't find housing, they wind up renting in the community, the R20, the R15s, where it was supposed to be single-family residences, especially Weatherburn, because it adjoins directly to KSU. We have an entire street that is mostly renters. We've scared off most of the residents that are living there because they've had major problems. One of the big issues we have with code enforcement, and I have to give code enforcement a lot of credit, just in Pine Tree alone, we have 24 active EMIs that check on there. There's really no teeth in the present code. The only way you can determine that you have more than 2 unrelated people in a house is to count cars. Well, students are very smart. They figured it out. They rotate cars, they put them 3 houses down. We have major problems because of the 20-foot roads where when people park like this, we can't get school buses through, we can't get garbage trucks through, et cetera. We really do need this act to pass so that we can start to reduce. One of the things that we've seen is once a house turns to a residential, to a student housing, it rarely goes back to single family. And most of the owners are investors, because if you look at a lot of the houses in the area.
I'm sorry, Mr. Angeloni, your time is up.
How many time is up?
Yes, sir, it's right there beside you. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Catherine Edgreg.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Kathy Andrag, and I live in Ackworth at Centennial Hill Drive. And I'm here with some of my fellow residents from Cobb County this evening, representing the Kennesaw chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. CCL is a volunteer organization of 100,000 members in the U.S. alone and many chapters worldwide. We're dedicated to developing federal legislation to reduce carbon dioxide emissions into the Earth's atmosphere. We are here tonight as part of our outreach to local government to inform you about the progress of a current legislative bill that has gained support in the U.S. Congress, and we hope to eventually solicit your support or endorsement for this specific legislation. For some background, in 2018, the 115th U.S. House of Representatives had equal support from both Democrats and Republicans for the introduction to the floor of H.R. Bill 763. And that had been crafted with the aid of Citizens Climate Lobby, economists, the science community, as well as members of the House. H.R. 763, known as the Energy Innovation and Dividend Act, features pricing of carbon at its source, with collected carbon fees being returned to American households in the form of a dividend. The dividend will mitigate price increases in cost of goods, services, energy caused by the carbon fee. This is considered the most efficient and effective way to significantly reduce our carbon dioxide emissions while stimulating market-driven solutions for alternative energy production. It's also important to note that this legislation would be revenue neutral. Our limitation tonight's going to make it impossible to go into any more detail in this bill, but there are many organizations, businesses, local municipalities, and individuals throughout the U.S. that have endorsed H.R. 763. We would like your advice on how we can best provide you with more detailed information on the advantages of H.R. 763. We're convinced this bill represents a practical means of obtaining a better environment, not only for our generation, but for, most importantly, future generations. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, if you do me a favor, in the back of the room is Mrs. Jessica Ginn. She works for community development. If you talk to her.
Excuse me?
Her name is Jessica Ginn.
No, I haven't. Oh, okay.
All right, just talk to her. She's
Okay.
with community development, and we'll start that.
Open a dialogue?
Start that conversation, yes, ma'am.
Hot dog.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You bet.
Jack Curtis.
Mr. Chairman, about 7 years ago, we were in Tennessee. We were sent down here for ministry. We were given a mobile home in a mobile home park in the village. And everything's been great, but about a week ago, code enforcement came through and they gave violations to nearly every mobile home in the county.
Okay, I need to know where you live. That would be helpful.
We're at the Village Mobile Home Park, Six Flags Road.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Right, and it's one of the better ones. I mean, there's some that are really trashy, some that are really nice. It's about probably in the middle. But there was enforcement for one woman. The only thing they could find was a gas can in the back of her house. But they came through and said that after a lot of these houses have been untouched for 10, 15 years, they got porches attached to everything. Now they're saying that we cannot have a porch attached to the mobile home. They say you got to be able to remove it within minutes. You'll be able to pull it out. Well, we live in a double wide, and you're a double wide, it takes a couple of days to prepare it anyway to be able to pull it out. But it's a safety hazard. My wife has the problems getting around. And if you have porches that have to have a gap between the porch and the house, that's a safety hazard. And we feel it's a discriminatory policy. We need to find out what can be done to get this changed where people can work with it. It's a hardship for people. It's a heart issue for people. I mean, people's homes they've been in for years. Now they're being challenged with costs they cannot afford to do and that would be unsafe for them. And we just need to know what can be done to take care of this problem.
Okay, what I'd ask you to do is work with Commissioner Cupid. I think we need to start a conversation about that. I understand where you're coming from, all right?
Yes.
So let's not give up the ship here. I'm sure we can find some middle ground somewhere, but we need to have a conversation about that. So again, if you would get with.
Yes, I don't mind. I did see your message today, sir, and I reached out to Kathy Pickett with Code Enforcement.
Right.
But Jessica Glenn, who's here tonight, her department, Community Development, is over Code Enforcement. I would encourage you to reach out to her at the back of the room so that we can relay this request to Kathy, but also that's the department that oversees our code amendment process if we need to take a look at that, sir.
All right, thank you. What's her name again?
It's Jessica Gwen, your star tonight, Jessica. Yeah, she'll wave you down.
Okay, where's she at?
Jessica, if you don't mind waving your hand so he can see who you are. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, that's the end of the public.
Okay, thank you. Now let's go on to the consent agenda. And let me get to my script here. All right, we have consent item number 20 has been withdrawn tonight. We need to look at that further. But I would like, Cornelius, number 28 has been withdrawn. consent item.
Yes. Yes, and I would consider that to be more so tabled so that we can have a discussion with the community with respect to this item. Yes, thank you, Chairman.
I'd like to have committees run us through the consent agenda items. And then, before we vote on it, I'd like to have Jessica Gwynn. She has, come on up. There was some confusion. I've been reading some emails, some letters, and some articles in the paper about this development authority, what we're trying to do here. And there's been some confusion about what these particular items on this consent agenda item are really addressing. So I've asked Jessica, Mrs. Gwynn, to give us some further background about these items, so that making sure that when we vote on these things tonight, we're making what I call an informed decision. Okay, so with that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yes, that's great. I tell you, this is 4 months on the job, and this is the most I've ever been called on at a commission meeting, so I'm very excited about that. Glad to be here with you all. So what's happening here is the Development Authority of Cobb County is considering issuing a tax-exempt senior living revenue bond to help finance the acquisition, construction, development, furnishing, and equipping of this senior living facility for Brookmont West. The facility that they're proposing is located on Dallas Highway, so that's in District 1. And the reason that we're bringing this to you all, although these are not bonds that are being issued by the county, the Internal Revenue Code requires that the local jurisdiction approve these tax-exempt bonds. This in no way obligates Cobb County to anything. There are no tax dollars being spent on these bonds. It'll all be paid back by the developer.
Okay, and somebody gave the example yesterday, it's kind of like we have to approve the school.
Yeah, the school board budget, or
Exactly.
millage.
The school millage. So there's requirements imposed on us by higher authority, as I like to say, that require us to do our part in it. And this is one of those actions tonight. But Commissioner, I believe you had a comment you want to say?
I just wanted to clarify, make sure everybody understands, when Jessica says tax exempt, it's not county taxes.
Right, these are our tax-exempt revenue bonds, and again, this isn't an exemption from county taxes.
Right, so it's a little bit
correct?
different than we normally hear, because a lot of times we're voting on incentives that the county is giving, and that's not the case here.
Correct. Okay. All right, so everybody's seen the consent agenda, and so with that, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda consent agenda as revised.
Excuse me.
And Commissioner Gamble has a comment here. We have a second first, but we had that. Okay, now, Commissioner Gamble, you have the floor.
I cannot support agenda item number 22. It states it's also for a public need. This developer is developing 5 other of these facilities within the area, and I cannot support it.
Okay, and that's noted for the record. Thank you.
Chairman, I would
Commissioner
just
Cupid.
ask if we can just poll 22 for discussion as opposed to,
You want to put it on regular?
yes, just so we can discuss it. I have some more questions for her, but typically this is not the time for that during consent.
Okay, so we can do that. We'll go ahead and move 22 to the regular agenda under community development. Please someone to remind me so I don't miss over it. So with that, any other further comments on this consent agenda? Then I call the question. Passes 5-0. Now into the regular. I need to have your indulgence for once. I need to ask the board something here. Okay, so what we're doing here is, first of all, number 51 has been withdrawn on the regular agenda. Okay,
51 is, we're tabling, as Commissioner Cupid said
Right.
earlier, we're tabling it for 2 weeks.
well, I'm just withdrawing it from the
Right.
agenda tonight, that's all I'm saying. I just want to make sure.
And just,
Regular agenda.
yeah, 51. No,
That was
oh,
yours.
Oh, it changed, the number changed?
52, he's 52.
That's yours, that's the one you wanted with,
Right, they're saying it's number 50. No, well, we also pulled 50, didn't we? That's what they're saying.
Oh,
50 is the
goodness,
flock.
Millie, what are we doing?
50 is the LPRs.
Yeah, we pulled that yesterday.
Right, but I think they want you to announce that we pulled it.
Okay, I see what's going on here. All right, yesterday at the agenda preparation, we agreed to withdraw agenda item number 50, okay? That was done yesterday.
Right, and then
Today,
tonight, I have asked,
Commissioner Otters asked us to withdraw number 51.
right, because I had some questions that came up from some citizens and actually some commissioners since after the agenda meeting yesterday. And so even though, yesterday I talked about the fact that 51 meets all the requirements of the county code, especially with the change for the fiscal analysis, I would just like to table this for 2 weeks.
Okay.
For some more questions and answers.
Okay.
So we come back in 2 weeks.
So just so everybody knows, we have now moved consent agenda number 22 onto the regular agenda, which will go into the community development portion of the discussions tonight. And the board has agreed to move agenda item number 52 on regular agenda up to discussion now. So with that, I believe that Mrs. Gwynn, once again, we'll ask you to come up here and lead the discussion on that. And number 52, for those who are here tonight, don't have the agenda, is the purpose-built student housing.
All right, good evening again. It's great to be here with you all tonight. And as a reminder, we have already satisfied the purpose-built student housing public hearing requirements. We've already had 2 public hearings, the most recent one being on June 25th, when you all opted to move this forward to this meeting. Currently, there is a moratorium on purpose-built student housing, as you all know. That current moratorium will end on September 1st of 2019. So that's coming up very quickly. And I have the presentation here. I'm not going to go through all of this in great detail. I think we've presented it several times at this point, and I'm glad to answer any questions. But this evening, I just wanted to tell you all what's happened since the last time we met. When we last met to talk about this, and at that point, again, it was pushed off to this month. Since then, we had another meeting with the stakeholders, including the homeowners associations, Commissioner Burrell, Public Safety, KSU, all of those players. And since then, the only change that's been made to what you saw last time is let's see here, it's right here in item E, where it says traffic impact study required per section 134, 121A8. Traffic count should be within the last 3 years, and all that we've done here is added and done while school is in session. So that's the only change since you all saw this last. I'm glad to go into more detail if you'd like to or answer any questions, but this is where we are this evening.
Thank you. So that, I'll ask Commissioner Burrell to make a motion.
Okay, do you want discussion first?
No, let's make the motion and the second, then we'll have the discussion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the ordinance for purpose-built student housing as presented.
I'll second it for discussion.
No, what?
I'm sorry, I neglected to point out one thing, and this is pertinent to the motion, but there is one small change. If you look in the text that you all received, we had one minor correction. 134-228 Regional Retail Commercial District, RRC. Under that existing section in the code, we're adding a definition of purpose-built student housing. It says that that's item K in that section. It should actually be item L. There was already a K, so that's going to be L versus K. So just a minor note for the purpose of the Municode down the road.
Where is that?
This is 134-228 Regional Retail Commercial District. Section 2, definitions. Purpose-built student housing definition is item L in that list rather than item K.
Okay, so it is allowed in a RRC.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so with that, I'll open the floor to discussion.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, well, first of all, you should all have what we call a heat map from Precinct 1. There has been some discussion on security measures with this new code as proposed. And really, I wanted to show y'all that the 3 student housing, off-campus student housing, the Blake, Stadium Village, and U Point, which are all off of Big Shanty, Hidden Forest Court, across from the football stadium. Their violent crimes have almost doubled from year to year, from 2017-18 calendar year to 2018-19. They were 5.24% of violent crimes out of precinct 1, which covers Commissioner Gambrell and my district. And they, mostly Commissioner Gambrell's, but all of KSU. And they jumped to 9.96 in just a year's time. That's almost doubled. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what the police calls are for that area, just in that one complex. The moratorium on this was implemented back in October of 2017. We've extended it 3 times to try to get this right. Staff did an extensive study and a detailed study for the area, came back with 2 options, an overlay district and a slope. The overlay district did not get the support. We actually rolled that out at an open house, and it did not get the support, so we went with the special land use permit. You heard tonight from some of the stakeholders, HOAs. We also had City of Kennesaw, our public safety police from Precinct 1, City of Kennesaw Police, and Campus Police involved in the stakeholders meetings, and the Town Center CID. I have not heard from any developers negative comments on the proposed SLUP requirements, and this has been out there publicly for, well, we've had the 2 public hearings, and it's been out there for 2 to 3 months. I have heard from one potential developer who is interested in a location that is in Iraq and is off of Chastain. However, with the moratorium, I didn't feel it was appropriate to meet with him and discuss it, but he was comfortable with the requirements that were publicly presented. So to me, this ordinance will, by requiring a special land use permit, will give us some additional safeguards in addition to the zoning that they'll have to go through to put up any student housing criteria. You can see from the heat map how the calls are really a strain on our public safety, and if they're in unincorporated Cobb, we have to go. We have to go to the calls. You know, we've really looked at this for 2 years, over 2 years, and I think I'm ready to make a motion that I've already made the motion, that we approve this and adopt this tonight, and the moratorium will be lifted September 1, or immediately, if it's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've stated my concerns before. First off, I want to thank the 3 folks that came from Bells Ferry Civic Association. We had a good conversation. We talked about a lot of different things, and I heard you, and, you know, we talked about what I thought was a good path forward. You know, before listening to your comments tonight, I had my concerns, which I still have, but I have bigger concerns now, because I feel like we are being forced by KSU to do their work. We're told that we had to change the code to no more than 2 in a house because we had problems with KSU. We have to increase the police up there because we have problems with KSU. And now we're being told that we have to come up with a new code because KSU doesn't want to build the dorms, but they want to increase the number of students. That's not how it's supposed to work. We are not supposed to be doing the Board of Regents' job. If they want to increase the number of students at the school, they need to build more housing. If they don't have room for everybody there, then they shouldn't accept all those students. If you want to be an international university, then you got to pay the bill and you got to do the job. So I have a bigger problem with all of that. So, I mean, yes, I definitely heard your comments tonight, and I hope KSU sees my comments because what they're expecting us to do is not our job. It is not the county's job to foot the bill. Now, the other problem I have is that at any time, and I confirmed this to the county attorney today, this board can say no anytime the zoning comes in front of it. And if the development for an apartment doesn't work for the community, doesn't have the things, the protections that we talked about yesterday, then this board votes no. It's not an either or that we have a moratorium or we have a code. We have county codes. And they are perfectly capable of protecting your community if this board just says no. Just because someone applies for a zoning doesn't mean that they're entitled to it. It is our responsibility with zoning. If it's not right, just say no. And this code is not right, and so I just have to say no.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gamble.
I echo Commissioner Ott's thoughts, because again, I don't think it's fair that KSU, the Board of Regents, is putting the burden on the county that they should be bearing.
Commissioner Cupid.
I recognize the concerns of Commissioners Ott and Gambrill with respect to KSU transferring some onus of student housing onto the county. But I also recognize that there is indeed an ongoing impact to the community regardless of whether or not we act. And I think that we should act in light of the ongoing impact that the current housing situation is having on the residents. I think that it was astute of Commissioner Burrow to try to do something about it and not let the situation remain as is, and to observe that if the university was not going to take action, that she, on behalf of the residents in that community, would take action. And she did not do it single-handedly. She did it in partnership with the university, with residents. She sought public safety, and she even had the perspective of a private developer in student housing reach out to her to provide input. And I think what's before us is a code that reflects that collaboration. Albeit it may not be perfect, it is a step forward to be able to address the ongoing challenges that that existing community has had with student housing. That has been ongoing at least for the time that I've been here. So for that, I am going to be in support of this code that's being proposed this evening. I recognize that we do have zoning in place, but I also know that sometimes zoning does not always exact the interest of the community. Sometimes the community walks away and they feel as if the board has voted in their interest, but sometimes they walk away and they feel that we have not. And I think that having something embedded in the code that protects their interests would allow them to more comfortably coexist with the university that's still operating and growing every day. I just have one suggestion, Commissioner Burrow, in reviewing the code and listening to one of the suggestions or changes made here this evening is in 34E, where we added the statement that says traffic counts shall be within the last 3 years and done while school is in session. I would just change done to performed, if you're okay with, she should be performed while school is in session. Done just sounds a little off to me, and that's just a minor semantic. But other than that, Commissioner Burrow, I'm supportive of this, and I'm supportive of it now in reflection that we've had a moratorium in place that will be removed in the near future, and I think it's important that we act now, or we're going to leave these residents to have to fend for their community. without any more support than they've had in the past several years to address the conflicts in student and single-family housing. You're welcome.
Thanks, Commissioner Cupid. I remember, I believe it was last month, Commissioner Ott had some concerns, and this is a gentleman who's very familiar with zoning, having been on the Planning Commission and now on the board for well over a decade. So his words always carry a lot of weight with me. But I just sort of take this down to practical terms. This is the second instance this month where the state has imposed a burden on us that we have to deal with our level. Because, as we all know, the gentleman once said, all politics is local, and your board is the most local that it gets. And I've heard the concerns of the residents of this neighborhood for the last 2 years. I think they've showed remarkable restraint in trying to work with this board and also work within the existing parameters of our tools and our kit to address local concerns. So if we don't address this issue, which is certainly paramount, and there's evidence of that in all areas, then who else do they have to go to? We're actually their last line of defense and their last line of recourse. So I think this is a neighborhood that has worked very closely, echoing Commissioner Cupid's comments here, worked very closely with a number of agencies trying to find a practical solution to a very real problem, which could be a crisis. I'm very mindful of the fact that I just want the community to know that I'm going to support this, but the reality is that we're going to be adopting a new ordinance here, or a new standard, but the new standard doesn't bring more money in to bring more police officers. So there's not going to be an overnight panacea to your solutions down there. I just want to be very, very clear about this, is that I'm responding to your concerns. This is to me, a middle-of-the-road solution. It's not the best of solutions, but it's one that I think is that we've tried everything else, and we simply have to respond to the concerns of this community. So with that, I'm going to support this, but be watching very closely here to make sure that we all understand that this county has only so many police officers and deputies. And I would echo Commissioner Ott's concern that I think it's time for the state to step up to the plate here and help us out here on an issue that's not a county issue, but it's become our issue because of the fact that the state has not responded to the concerns of their community. So with that, I call the question. And it passes 3-2 with Commissioner Gamble and not in opposition. All right, so let's go back to the start of our regular agenda, if I can find it. I'm loosening my tie. All right, we'll start tonight with number 33. Am I going to present that, or is the county manager going to present that? Or would you do that for us, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's my pleasure tonight to present for the board's consideration an employment agreement with Mr. Bill Rolling Jr., who serves as our county attorney per board action effective August 25th, 2019. This was part of a succession planning effort that the board was actively involved in, and my compliments to the board. I think we've selected a fantastic candidate in Mr. Rolling. The employment agreement has been provided under separate cover to the board, and would request that the board consider approving the employment agreement between Cobb County and Mr. Rolling, and authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Okay, with that, so moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, before we vote, Rob.
Sure.
Can you talk about the stuff we added?
Yes,
Because I'm
during
looking-
executive session yesterday afternoon, there was
Did the, because I don't think the amendments are, okay, yeah.
right,
Well, you can go ahead and make it for the record orally.
Well, yeah, it's just because on the electronic one, it hasn't been changed.
It hasn't been changed yet. I didn't know if there's going to be any additional changes, but yeah, we agreed to specific language in section 2.02 relating to a 60-day notice prior to the automatic renewal. And that was language that we was agreed to and reviewed yesterday to give the board notice prior to the automatic renewal would take place. And that would be the one that we would move forward with next.
Right, and just kind of as we, for the folks in the audience, my concerns yesterday were that the contract has an automatic renewal, and if the board were not to want to renew the contract prior to there has to be a 90-day notice. And in the past, there has been no notification to the board that that date is approaching. So what I asked and was added to the contract was that there is now a requirement, basically from HR, to notify the Board of Commissioners that 60 days prior to the 90-day deadline.
Right. Okay, any other discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, transportation.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. The Department of Transportation has 15 items for consideration this afternoon. The first item is to request that the Board of Commissioners authorize the appropriation of interest earnings revenue to the 2016 SPLOST Improvements Program Fund Budget and authorize the corresponding budget transactions and further authorize the periodic appropriation of all future interest earnings revenue to the 2016 SPLOST Transportation Improvements Program Fund Budget.
So moved. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners ratify previous action by the county manager authorizing emergency repairs on Randall Farm Road in response to a collapsed roadway. Approve project number X2245 to the 2018 countywide unit price contract with Chatfield Contracting, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $225,000.75 for those said repairs.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners authorize the temporary modification of travel lanes on the Woodland Brook Drive over Gilmore Creek, previously identified as Vinings Creek Bridge, project number X2120, to reduce traffic flow from 2 lanes to 1 lane.
Commissioner Ott.
Just kind of a comment to the folks from Vinings. This is going to, we understand it's going to have an impact, but it's for safety reasons, and the county will get in and make the repairs as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Baldwin Paving Company, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $2,182,086.11 for intersection improvements on Hicks Road at Concord Road.
Commissioner Cupid.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Butch Thompson Enterprises, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $155,515 for drainage system repairs on Timber Trail at South Gordon Road.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Accelera Construction LLC in an amount not to exceed $244,800 for demolition of 4 buildings located at Arlington Park at Wildwood Apartments for construction of Windy Hill Road, Terrell Mill Road connector.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Chatfield Contracting, Inc., a savings to the project in the amount of $18,024.50 for drainage system repairs on Kinsmont Cove.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a change order number 1 final to the contract with Chatfield Contracting, Inc., a savings to the project in the amount of $1,586.80 for drainage system repairs on Cinnamon Teal Court.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Paulette Tucker Enterprises, Inc., DBA Tucker Grading and Hauling, a savings to the project in the amount of $8,130 for the demolition of 27 buildings located at Turnberry Lane Townhomes on Windy Hill Road, Terrell Mill Road connector.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Paulette Tucker Enterprises, Inc., DBA Tucker Grading and Hauling, the savings to the project in the amount of $3,250 for demolition removal of 4658 Lower Roswell Road.
Commissioner Ott.
I'm starting to feel like Jessica. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the
That's a
question.
good thing. Thank you.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Paulette Tucker Enterprises, Inc., DBA Tucker Grading and Hauling, a savings to the project in the amount of $17,617.50 for asbestos abatement services on Windy Hill Road, Terrell Mill Road connector.
Commissioner Ott again.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Accelera Construction LLC, a savings to the project in the amount of $41,174.86 for drainage system repairs on Pineland Drive.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a utility relocation agreement with Georgia Power Company in an amount not to exceed $200,651 for preliminary engineering and relocation of facilities on Factory Shoals Road at Riverside Parkway.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with R.J. Haney and Associates, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $877,900 for traffic signal timing, SCATS expansion.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And then our last item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Carlson Construction Services LLC in an amount not to exceed $1,478,436.35 for Advanced Transportation Management Systems, Intelligent Transportation Systems Communications, ATMS-ITS, Phases 1C, 2, and 3A.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Jimmy?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Manager. Our item this evening is for the board to approve change order number 1 final to the contract with Hogan Construction Group LLC for improvements at the Parks Administration Office under the 2011 and 2016 Park Splosh Program. All work has been completed on our new office with a savings of $85,639.63 to be credited back to the 2011 and 16 Park Splosh programs. Therefore, we ask the Board of Commissioners to approve the contract revision, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute necessary documents.
Commissioner Gamble?
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, let's go ahead and bring on to a discussion the consent agenda number 22 that we're going to bring forward to a regular. And we'll bring. All right, so with that, I think we want to bring Jessica back up for that, right? Right. Okay, first, I'm going to go ahead and ask Commissioner Cupid to give the motion, and then I'll second it. Well, but you want to bring it on the regular, so I just want a motion to have discussion. We're just going to discuss it.
I don't feel comfortable moving for the agenda item because it's not.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it for the discussion.
Okay, I'll motion to adopt a resolution approving the issuance by the Development Authority of Cobb County of its senior living revenue bond for the purpose of assisting Brickmont, West Cobb, SB Living Liability Company, Georgia Limited Liability Company. We have a second. Now we can have a discussion. All right, so with that, I'll turn the floor over to you, Jessica.
Yes, and if it's okay with the board, we've got Nelson Jeter with the Development Authority, Cobb County, and also his team of experts on the matter here. So if it's all right with you all, I'd like to have Nelson come up and
Okay, and I
answer your
think,
questions.
I think we could probably start, he has some specific questions, Commissioner Cupid?
Sure.
So why don't we get Nelson, come on up, whoever else you want to bring up here, so we can make sure we have a, what I, again, I like to call an informed conversation. And if you would just give us a brief overview of the intent of this agenda item, Nelson, and then we'll have some questions, okay?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll refer that over to our legal counsel, Mr. Mike Diamond.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Commissioners, good evening. My name is Mike Diamond. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Seyfarth Shaw. We serve as counsel to the Development Authority of Cobb County. I'm also a resident of East Cobb. What you have before you is a resolution to approve the issuance of bonds by the Development Authority for the Brickmont West Cobb project, which is a senior living facility. Under federal tax law, these bonds would be tax exempt bonds, which means that the interest paid to the bondholder would be exempt from federal income tax. These are different, as somebody pointed out before, I think it was Mr. Rott, from property tax savings bonds. That is not what we're doing here. This is an issue of bonds under federal tax law, which allows certain types of private facilities, such as a senior housing facility, to be issued on a tax-exempt basis. There are many requirements to issue tax-exempt bonds, which bond counsel, in this case, the law firm of Butler and Snow, will review and opine on when the bonds are issued. One of those requirements, though, is that there be what's called a TEFRA hearing and a TEFRA approval. TEFRA is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982, TEFRA. And under that act, Congress required that when certain types of tax-exempt bonds are issued, there must be first a public hearing and then a public approval. And what was legislated was that there needed to be notice filed in the newspaper at least 14 days before a hearing, and then the issuer of the bonds needs to conduct a public hearing, and then following that, the highest applicable elected official, which in this case is the Board of Commissioners of Cobb County, is asked to provide their approval. If that occurs, then one of the requirements for issuing tax-exempt bonds has been met. That's what you're being asked to do tonight. The resolution that was provided to the Board of Commissioners provides that approval is given for purposes of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, which is the provision that discusses or that requires approval by the highest applicable elected official, which in this case is the county legislature. And that's all that it does. It does not, and as a matter of fact, it specifically, the resolution specifically provides that the county is not making any determination as to the economic viability of the project, the fiscal impact of the, not fiscal impact, but that the project will be viable. These bonds are, the Development Authority is acting as a conduit issuer. It issues the bonds in accordance with federal requirements and obviously under state law. Payment of debt service on the bond is solely an obligation of the developer of the project. It is not an obligation of the Development Authority. It is not an obligation of the county. It is not an obligation of the state. That's, I could keep talking, but
Okay, all right,
let
well,
me
thank you. I
stop
think
there.
that summarizes very nicely what the intent of the law was and why it's before us tonight.
Could I ask a quick question? And I don't know if it's Rob or the attorney. So I understand all what you said, but in order for this project to be built, didn't the land have to be zoned?
Yes, sir. In this particular instance, I believe it's under ownership of the Marietta Housing Authority. I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
not-
thinking of the
sorry,
other.
No, not this one.
That is not correct for
I'm
this
sorry. I'm
project.
thinking of the other one. I believe this was zoned.
So it has already come in front of this board and it was approved. Well, I just want to make something clear because, so the merits of the project and whether or not it was appropriate and all that were decided by the board at a past date.
That's correct, sir.
February, okay. So the difference here is this board already heard that, and what we're being asked to do now is just basically exercise a legislative responsibility put in front of us by Congress. Is that correct?
I can answer to the second part. I can't answer to what
Well,
actions.
no,
the board
I'm
already took.
asking about the second part.
Yes, sir.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Cupid?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate your explanation and background of the project. And Commissioner Gamble, I pulled this because I heard you had some opposition, and I have a project that's in the area that's also come before us, which was tabled. So I just wanted to hear what may be applicable, what may not be, but also have an opportunity to hear what your concerns were about this project. I also wanted to ask questions about zoning, which Commissioner Ott already addressed. So I feel comfortable supporting something that the board may have already approved through our zoning process. But I also am sensitive to you being the district commissioner of where this is, and I would like to understand what your concerns are regarding the project.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cupid. One of the requirements that the Internal Revenue Code is that for the use of the revenue bonds for private projects, if the bonds are to be tax exempt, the documents provided with the agenda item offer no assurance that all of these requirements have been met. We didn't receive any of the documentations to review to verify that they've met all the requirements. Also, when I met with the developer, I was told no funding was going to be required. There was going to be no tax abatements, no nothing. And for this to be the 6th project they're doing in the area, with the other 5 projects not requiring this type of financing, I'm just a little suspicious.
As the, go ahead.
And I forgot to address your other question, Commissioner Cupid. This is different than the housing development in your area. This is an assisted living facility. It's not affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to add, I agree with Commissioner Gamble, I agree with Commissioner Cupid in the fact that I am always sensitive to when another commissioner has a concern. But I think that, as Commissioner Cupid stated, this board heard the zoning request, and all we're being asked to do now, and once again, very similar to like we said, when we're asked to, I may not agree with the school board millage, which actually now is 75% of our tax bill. That's what it said on my tax bill. I may not agree with that, but you know, when we're asked to vote on that, it is not our mission to decide whether or not it's the right number. We as the taxing authority are the only ones in the county that can approve a millage rate. And so as much as I didn't like the number, I needed to vote for it. And I think that this is a similar situation where, there may be issues, and I know you have issues with the location of this and everything else, but that's not really what's in front of us tonight. What's in front of us tonight is a congressionally mandated responsibility as the governing body of the county, and that's all. And so, that's why I need to vote for it.
And there's no liability to the county. It's all on the developer.
Right.
That's
Any
correct.
property tax or, if they default or whatever, it's not coming back on the county.
No.
Okay, any other comments, discussion?
In light of everything that was shared, I'm supportive. Commissioner Gamble, I'm not understanding which additional conditions had to be substantiated for this, or?
I felt we didn't get all the information to evaluate if they had met all the requirements. We were just given the recommendation to, approve this, but we weren't given the information to support their recommendation.
Okay.
And there's no notes either documented in their minutes from the open public hearing that they had. I know several people have tried to obtain those minutes, and they've been unsuccessful in doing so.
Okay.
Excuse, we can't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Speak up, please.
They couldn't hear your concern.
That we have not received all the pertinent information to make sure that this applicant meets all the requirements as required by the IRS. And then also several individuals have tried to obtain your minutes from the open meeting that you had and have not been able to do so.
If I can address that, please. Two things. Number one, my firm has represented the Development Authority for the past 6 years. And when an application comes before the Development Authority for a tax-exempt bond issue, and as part of that requirement, we prepare information to provide to the county. The information that we've been providing has been consistent for the last 6 years and was the same information that our predecessor was providing. If the county wants additional information, and that is relayed to us in due course, we'll be happy to provide that. Number two, the county is not being asked to provide a bond counsel opinion that the bonds are tax exempt. That's what bond counsel will be doing. The information that was provided was basically the information that was given to the public that was part of the public notice for the TEFRA hearing, and was consistent with that. Number three, one of the pieces of information that we provided, which is one of the attached to the agenda, is the notice of the public hearing. I conducted that hearing. I'm one of the 3 hearing officers for the Development Authority. Nobody attended that meeting, and so the only record of that meeting is the one-page report. This is different, as Ms. Cupid said, with the project that she's interested in, or one of her projects, the McEachin project, which in addition to being a tax-exempt bond, is also a project that involves the Marietta Housing Authority, for which this board has adopted, or not for which, but under which there is a policy that this board has adopted that specifically relates to transactions which involve the Marietta Housing Authority, which my understanding is that was done in part to address certain zoning issues or the lack of certain zoning approval when the Housing Authority has an interest in the property. But that wasn't the case with this particular transaction, the Brickmont transaction.
Well, I guess my question, though, is it goes back to what Commissioner Gamble said. Does anybody keep minutes of these meetings?
Well, like I said, sir, there was a meeting that was called.
That's not my question. My question is, did anybody keep minutes of this? I've never been to a meeting, an official public meeting, that you haven't kept minutes.
There was a report, a report on the
So the
meeting.
answer is no.
No, the answer is yes.
That's not minutes that the public has access to. We'll settle this later, okay? Your answer is insufficient in my opinion. So the bottom line here is that I think our question's been answered, and we have some concerns expressed here that we'll have to address in the future. So we have any other comments, questions of the board, of these members?
Commissioner Gamble, I can understand your concerns, but in weighing them in light of what council has provided, I don't have additional question about it or concern, but in light of the questions that have been asked, it may be appropriate in the future for us to receive additional documentation that substantiates any requirements that are needed to qualify for the revenue bond. I mean, this certainly exceeds the level of detail that I've received in the past, and my primary concern was ensuring that zoning requirements have been met, and there certainly was notice to the public that follows zoning when that came before the board, so I do feel more comfortable in supporting this item.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have an issue with what you're saying about the minutes. I'm looking at this report on the public hearing. Okay, it says, whereas at 10 o'clock on July 23rd, the meeting was basically started, and then it says the public hearing was declared to be open, its purpose stated. It said no written comments were received, no persons have showed up, no persons appeared and spoke, and therefore the undersigned declared the hearing closed at 23. It's not in the format that our minutes are, but it says when it opened, when it closed, and who was there.
But the point is that when someone from the public wants to have access to, the answer is there's no minutes.
There's a report.
But the report comes at the very end when we're presenting the documents here, I mean, as we have a discovery process here, and that's perhaps the wrong term, because I don't want to get into legal issues here, but if the public wants to have access to what went on at that meeting, the minutes could simply say we convened the minutes, we convened the meeting, no one attended, meeting was over, and that settles the issue here. But since it's now part of the resolution, the public doesn't have access till the very end. So how can you have an
The public
informed
has had
discussion?
access to it since Friday.
I think I heard you say that because no one opposed it or at the public hearing, that it was a one-page report. Do you have other documents that are open to the public that we could have reviewed or requested that shows where they met the requirements to obtain this? Bond.
We're perhaps being unfair to you, because if we're gonna be asking for something specific, we need to tell you what it is we want. And so it's not fair to you tonight to put a requirement on you that we never asked for before. This is an evolving board, so we may be asking for just some additional documentation to relieve some concerns we have here expressed by some of the board members. So if my marks were a little brusque, I apologize, all right? Because I've asked you to do something that you never asked to do before. So we will come back to you in the future. If we want to have some specific forms of a documentation, we need to provide you that courtesy, what that looks like. And we didn't do that. That's right. We didn't do that tonight. We didn't do that before. So it's unfair to you to ask you for something that we didn't ask in the past. If we're going to ask for it in the future, we'll get with the board here to decide what form we want it to look like and present you with those guidelines. Does that work for you?
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay,
very
so
much.
I apologize to you, sir.
And Chairman, if I may make one more note. I know there have been public requests for the minutes, but sometimes the way that we publish notice does not actually give the public adequate notice by putting it in our, in the Marietta Daily Journal, even though that's probably our formal organ, that's really more of a legal term or practice of art. But for the public to know that there is going to be a decision of this nature, there may be some other ways that we can think about providing notice so that people can take a better look at this in a more timely manner.
Okay, with that,
If I can just clarify about the minutes. When folks went out to look at the minutes, they found the minutes for Commissioner Cupid's affordable housing with the Marietta Housing Development. They were not able to find the minutes of this particular one. So when I got those questions, I referred them to our agenda book because they were included in our agenda book, but they were not on the Development Authority's site where they had originally been looking.
okay. Well, we clearly need to discuss this issue at our work session. This is not your issue, all right? So with that, I call the question. Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Gamble in opposition. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and then I believe it's now communications.
Evening, Commissioners. I was going to ask Jessica Gwynn to come up and present this one since she hasn't been up here in a few minutes, but she's waving me off. I have one item tonight that is in 4 parts. It's a request to amend our Cobb TV Board of Commissioners Access Room Meeting Policy. It cleans up some language in the policy, but has 4 specific changes. One involves this very board meeting room. Occasionally, we have non-county groups and organizations that ask to use this room, which we usually grant, but many of those are after normal business hours. As you know, earlier this year, this building became a secure facility. So the first part of this just outlines how these non-county groups need to pay back the cost of manning the security facility for any after-hours event that they wish to hold here. The second one kind of dovetails off that. If, according to the policy, Any of those groups need to use Cobb TV resources, personnel, equipment, that they would need to reimburse the cost of some of those resources. The third change has to do with our longstanding prohibition about candidates using Cobb TV resources during an election year. That moves the start of that prohibition to the end of the qualifying period for the election. And the fourth significant change in this policy has to do with non-county employees who come to any of the public meetings in this room wishing to show anything visual, that they need to turn those materials into communications for security screening before the meeting begins. That's just in case anybody would give us intentionally or unintentionally, more likely unintentionally, a bad agent into our computer system here. We've set up a method to screen those prior to the meeting, and those are the four major changes in the policy we're asking for you to adopt tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrow?
Yes. Yesterday at work session, we discussed about if they use the room during the day when the security officers are working anyway, that there wouldn't be an additional charge.
There would
Or
not
no?
be any charge for this security, manning the security outpost.
But there would be for the use of the
If-
videos.
If it's in the policy that we broadcast, that charge would still apply.
Correct. Okay. I just want to make sure we made that clear and changed.
Sure.
So motion to approve.
Discussion? Call the question? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one agenda item on appointments. And with that, we pulled number 54. That's correct. So number 55 is that I move that the Board of Commissioners authorize a submission to the Kennestone Hospital Authority of Cobb County the following names for consideration and filling the expired terms of posts 1, 2, and 3. Bob Prilliman for post 1, Janie Maddox for post 2, and R. Randall Bentley for post 3 for a term balance to expire on August 7th, 2022. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Call the question? Passes 5-0. And public comment, commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, tomorrow evening, I will be holding my monthly community zoning meeting, which will be at the South Cobb Lions Community Center at 6 p.m. off of Lions Club Drive. At that meeting, we discuss zoning meetings that are coming up in the next month and encourage residents to come out to address any concerns or ask any questions about any pending zoning cases. Also, we have a unique opportunity for residents in Cobb to get no-cost training to sit and pass for the CompTIA A+ and Network certification exam, where it teaches skills that include computer maintenance, installation and troubleshooting, networking and security concepts, mobile technology, and in-demand customer service. The training is being provided in partnership with Perscalis and also WorkSource Georgia, and there are information sessions that will be held at First Christian Church off of 878 Old Alabama Road in Mableton, which is very close to Pebblebrook High School. I encourage persons to take advantage of this opportunity to learn about this training and to obtain free training that can help move somebody forward in their career. And you can learn more about this by going online to my newsletter or going to perscalis.org or even contacting WorkSource Cobb. Finally, there's a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta to support youth that are participating in that program through Spirit Night at Kennesaw State's Fifth Third Bank Stadium. They have a game with Atlanta United 2 on Saturday, September 7th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are on sale at a cost of $20.50 per seat. And all of the proceeds from that game will be going to the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta. If you go online to the Atlanta United game, you can enter code BGCMA to get that discount code. So I encourage people to come out and see a great soccer game and to support our youth here in the county. Those
Thank
are
you,
my
Commissioner.
comments, Chair.
Commissioner Gambrell.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to remind everybody of my next town hall coming up on September 12th at 6:30 at the West Cobb Senior Center. And then we've got a short video that I'd like to show in regards to the connection.
Even when you were little, you dreamed big. Maybe you had visions of the good you do in the world, how you might change your community. Now you have the means, but there are so many worthy causes in need of help. Where do you start? Your community foundation has the answer. It's local and dedicated to improving the community where you live. Here's how it works. You can start your own fund by giving cash, stock, real estate, or other assets. If you wish, your community foundation will help you match your interests in the arts, education, economic development, or other causes with charities that share your passion. Plus, you can decide whether you want to give now or later. Community foundations offer tax advantages and personalized services that create a seamless giving process for you. They'll work with you or your professional advisor. It's your choice. And as your giving helps to better your community, everyone benefits, now and in the future. Community foundations help you on your path to personal philanthropy, making it easier for you to do good. So when you're ready to give, visit your community foundation. Together, we can create something special that will last forever.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burrow.
Okay, as you saw earlier, we are up to 111 pet adoptions through the generosity of Superior Plumbing. And yesterday we had 2 in one day. This is Mr. Dean. He served our country in the U.S. Army for 25 years. He's now a hero again because he adopted a handsome dog. And also yesterday we had Mr. Redden for his service in the Navy for 8 years. Congratulations to you and your family for adopting this handsome dog who is headed home to spend time with a wonderful family. Thanks to Superior Plumbing and Cobb County Animal Services. Don't forget, we will be, last week, Michael Hughes spoke to the Northeast Cobb Business Association, to small business, to give them some insight into our small business incentives, and we appreciate him sharing his expertise with the group. He did a great job. Labor Day is September 2nd, next Monday, and offices will be closed. County offices will be closed, so we wish you all a safe and restful Labor Day. Not yet. I'm not going in order. Sandy Plains Baseball opening day is September 7th, and this year I will be in town and throw out the first pitch. Mr. Chairman, you had to take my place last year. Harrison Park, noon, 2653 Shallowford Road. It's a great group and a lot of excitement with the kids for opening day for fall baseball. Also, Truckapalooza is Saturday, September 7th from 10 to 3:30 at Town Center Mall in the lower parking lot by Sears. Come out and see the SWAT trucks, fire and rescue, all the good things from public safety. And then last but not least, on September 1st, our chairman is celebrating the big 7-0.
It's a national holiday.
Yeah. And now everybody knows how old you are. So,
I earned every one of those years.
They have Labor Day because it takes that much effort to lift all those candles.
so we
You'll
wish
be there
you
someday.
a happy birthday and a wonderful trip. Be
Thank you.
safe, and the county's in good hands with me and
Absolutely.
Mr. Hozak while you're gone.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate those kind words.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I was going to have a special presentation tonight, but the victim of the roast is not here. She had to head home early, so in 2 weeks, we will have a little discussion, right, Eddie? Eddie is waiting. So the only thing I would say is just as a reminder to the folks in District 2, especially those down in the Smyrna area, we have a single website page on the county webpage for you to get the latest information on the Sterigenics issue as we go forward. And I will continue, and I know Commissioner Cupid is working with me to continue to get as much information as we can. We'll start testing soon, and once we get that information back, we'll, obviously release that to the community.
Sure.
There's cake at the Learning Center.
Cake in the Learning Center. And the only thing I'd like to say is that, as we all know, with great sadness, we had to wish Director of Public Safety, Michael Register, all the best as he handles his family issues. And until the board looks at new candidates and makes a decision in the future, Fire Chief Randy Crider will be our interim Public Safety Director. And we wish him all the best, but more importantly, the best. Our prayers go out to Mike, Chief Register, and his family. So with that, we're adjourned.